Alright, this is video number 2. The first video we left off was 2 hours before our first appointment on Thursday. I think the easiest way to document this, at least this week, is just to go one day at a time. So I'm just going to explain what happened on Thursday, and then I'll make a different video for Friday. Today is Saturday morning. We're on 2 hour, we had 2 appointments Thursday, surgery yesterday, an appointment today. So this is our 4th appointment in 3 days. So it's been probably the craziest 2 days, maybe, of our lives. Except for maybe an exception would be Annabelle's birth. I don't know. But anyway, so I just want to talk about Thursday first, and we can just go from there. So Thursday, my appointment was at 12:30, and it was scheduled. I think I explained all that in the first video, so I'm not going to explain that again. Which was with a high-risk OB due to antibodies found in my blood test from my last OB appointment, my regular OB appointment. So this was my first time ever seeing a high-risk OB. It was supposed to be like a 40-minute level 2 ultrasound scan, and they're just looking for some very specific things. I didn't know what they were looking for. I don't think you knew what they were looking for. I just thought they were just like checking on him. They didn't really say much beforehand. I think they didn't want to like freak us out unnecessarily. So the 40-minute scan, we're in there for almost 2 hours, and like they're still looking for stuff, and we're just like, okay. At this point, like, to us, like, we don't read ultrasounds. Everything looks normal. Like, he's moving, you can see his hands, his feet, his heart is beating. So Chris is sitting there like, hey, I'm ready to go. We've been in this ultrasound for like 2 hours, and obviously he looks fine. Like, let's get the show on the road. And then the doctor comes in, and she is very, very kind, and she quickly starts to explain to us that Leo is he's showing signs of extreme anemia. What they were looking for was a couple of sort of markers to see if he's anemic. And so the first thing they were looking at is fluid around some of his organs, and they were finding a significant amount of fluid around his skin, his stomach, and his heart. So that's called in an infant, in a fetus, is called hydrops, and it's extremely dangerous because essentially the fluid is going to be attacking his organs, and he's pretty much going through heart failure right now. That's what causes the fluid, is the heart is working so hard that it starts putting fluid around these organs. So he's in a very critical state already. And the other thing that they look for is they look at this giant vein that they can see in the baby's brain, which these ultrasounds are just crazy, the things they can see. So they look at this vein in the brain, and what they're looking for is how quickly his blood is moving through it. So a fetus's blood should be moving very slow because it's very thick and concentrated. And so they look to see how quickly it's moving, because if it's going faster than normal, then that means that he doesn't have the appropriate amount of red blood cells. Red blood cells move oxygen throughout the rest of the body. They're very important, obviously. And this whole condition, right, my antibodies specifically attack his red blood cells. So that's why we're looking at all these things. And so a normal reading for the slowness of the blood moving through that vein is 1 mm, whatever that means. And then an anemic baby is 1.5, so it's moving a little faster than it should be. And he was 2.4, meaning extremely, extremely anemic, which is why he already had all the fluid buildup. The next doctor that we talked to essentially said that his heart's been working extremely hard for a long time, and he's not doing well. He's very sick. So after sort of hearing all of this in like, I don't know, like a 10-minute conversation, and we're like, you know, I'm already feeling very emotional, because although I went into the appointment, you know, filled with like faith that everything was going to be fine, you know, it's just jarring when it's like, we're basically worst case scenario, like all odds are stacked against him at the moment. And but the doctors there were amazing, and they already, during that like hour and 45-minute scan, already sort of knew what they were seeing, and had already contacted 2 specialist doctors in downtown Minneapolis at like a fetal care center specifically for, like, these are pretty much the only doctors and the best doctors in the entire Midwest, like 5-state area, that do like specialized fetal surgeries and can help save babies' lives even at 23 weeks, which is where we're at right now. And so she had already contacted them. They already knew who we are. They already knew our situation. They already had the ultrasound pictures and sent us downtown pretty much immediately after that appointment. So that one was at 12:30. I think we were there until at least 3. I want to say we left at like 3.
Sure.
And came downtown. They were so attentive. This new clinic that we went to, they called me, made sure I knew exactly where to park, and made sure I knew where to park. Chris had to leave because he had to go pick up Annabelle, so we couldn't go to this one together because Annabelle had to be picked up from daycare. Our dog was at home, so like it was what it was. We have family around, but none of them have a car seat, so one of us had to go do that. And obviously I had to be the one getting poked and prodded. So, because Leo and I are a package deal at the moment. Anyway, so we go to this clinic in downtown Minneapolis. They're very kind. They call me. They tell me where to park. I don't even have to go to a check-in desk. There's somebody that meets me at the door. Like, they are so aware of the severity of the situation, and they were so kind to, like, what I was emotionally going through at this point. I bawled my eyes out the entire drive from the first appointment was in Coon Rapids, and then this, I'm sorry if you're not from Minnesota and you don't know where these places are, but it was about a 30-minute drive, and I just pretty much like bawled the whole time and listened to worship music, just like blasted worship music, like spoke truth over him and just cried, which is what I needed to do. And so I get to this next appointment. The lady meets me right at the door. She walks me to the lab. We get some more blood work done, seeing where all the things are at this point. And then I also had to get blood drawn to match essentially my body to the donor blood that Leo's going to be getting. Because that's obviously very important that they have all that like very heavily matched up. And so got those blood draws, and then I went in for a second ultrasound. And so now at this new clinic, they're doing basically the same thing. They're looking for that fluid. They're looking for that movement in the vein in the brain. They confirm that he's extremely anemic. The doctor comes in and he's with me looking at the ultrasound, talking to me, explaining to me kind of again everything they're seeing and what this means, and that Leo is extremely sick, he's extremely fragile, and that he's going to need a blood transfusion.
Left on 10th?
Left on 10th, yeah.
Right on 26th.
I think it's left on 10th, left on 26th.
Okay.
I'll wrap this up. We're almost done with Thursday. So, anyway, he's explaining essentially the severity of the situation. We come out of the ultrasound and into a consultation room. The consultation room is literally a couch with a Kleenex box on it. Like, you know, you are in a place where they don't deliver the greatest news. And so, he told us that Leo's going to need immediate blood transfusions, and that depending on what his red blood cell count percentage is, that's going to make a difference for how much blood they can transfuse at a time, because you don't want to overwhelm the heart with too much. And so we talked about that. We talked about the fact that if he does not get these transfusions, he will pretty much undoubtedly die. But he could also not take the transfusion well, which could also cause him to die. And so we didn't really have much of a choice. We had to just kind of do it. And so we scheduled surgery for Friday morning. And so I'll make a separate video on what Friday was. So again, I get back in the car. I go to my parents' house, because at this point, Chris had already grabbed Annabelle and Theodore and made it to my parents' house in Bloomington. They're quite a bit closer to this clinic. And just cried the whole way. Cried when I got there. You know, talked to my parents about what we're looking at. My dad called the elders of the church that we went to when we lived in Bloomington. If you're not a church person, I know the word elder sounds really weird. But it's just a couple of guys that I actually had their kids in youth group when I was a youth leader, and I adore their families, and it was just, I was so glad that they came, and they just prayed over me, and they prayed over Leo. Again, I just like blasted worship music on the way home. And so Thursday night we really just kind of spent a lot of time in prayer, a lot of time crying and just taking it in. And I think I'll update everything else on the Friday video. So anyway, that is where we're at right now. Thursday was crazy, and thanks for listening. Okay, bye. Quick correction to the last video. The movement in the vein in the brain is called MCAs. So normal is 1 MCA, anemic is 1.5, and Leonard's was 2.4 MCAs. So I just wanted to correct that. So when you're watching this, I don't want to give wrong terminology, but also I am not an expert in this yet, because we literally heard of all of this for the first time in our lives 2 days ago. So sorry if all the terminology is not quite right. Anyway, just wanted to give that update. I will make a separate video for what went down on Friday, and then so on and so forth as we experience all of our stuff this week, because this week will be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And then I think we have a small gap, so more videos coming.